Flores. We're going to get started. We want to make certain that everybody could hear us, so please shoot us a quick message saying thumbs up or yes, you can hear. And at any time during this webinar that you can't hear, you're experiencing technical difficulties, please message us so that we are aware of it. All right. I also want to begin with, this is a very competitive process, and it's important, and we encourage you to please pay attention and ask questions. All right, let's go. We have in our conference room today our program staff, Kelvin Alfaro, our other program officer, Michelle Murphy, who is our foundation support specialist, and again, this is Sandra Flores. I serve as the senior program officer for the foundation. We are going to talk about a little bit about Fresno Regional Foundation and the fund for the San Joaquin Valley, the high impact focus and the goals to fund, how to apply, and final tips and questions. All right, Fresno Regional Foundation. Here we go. We are a 501c3 organization, a community foundation. We've been in the Central Valley since 1966. This is our 48th year. Our regional footprint includes Fresno, Madera, Kings, Tulare, Mariposa, and Merced counties. This is a little bit about our assets and the types of funds that comprise our assets. Organization, FRF operations and capacity building, donor advised funds, field of interest funds, scholarship funds, board discretionary funds, and we also work with and support organizations, specifically family, private, smaller foundations. All right. Do our grant cycles. At Fresno Regional Foundation has 5 grant cycles. In 2008, we began with Arts and Culture, Youth and Human Services. We also began a partnership with the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation that led to a grant in which we re-granted in 2 areas, teen pregnancy prevention and air quality. The teen pregnancy prevention has since emerged as its own grant cycle. Air quality has emerged as our environment grant cycle, which was added in 2011. In 2012, we added our 5th grant cycle, which is high impact. This grant cycle focuses on how we support families and children 0 to 8 for success by 3rd grade. And that grant cycle emerged from a partnership with the James Irvine Foundation. We will talk a little bit more about that later. All right, before we get started, we're going to take a poll, and we want to kind of gauge who's in the webinar audience. So if this is your organization's first time applying to Fresno Regional Foundation, please select yes, or no if it's not, and if you're not sure, please select that option. So we'll give you just a few seconds here for you to cast your vote. All right, we've got it at 88%. Let's do it. All right, we've got 30% with this being your first time applying to us. That's good for us to know, 30% of our audience, first timers. 57% of you have applied to us before, and we've got 13% either you are new to your organization, which is why you don't know, or that you're new to this grant making process. So almost then I would say 43% that may possibly not apply to us before. Okay, here's the second question. Does your organization serve urban or rural communities? So we've got an urban option, rural option, or both. So please take a few, here we go, few seconds to take this poll. Here we go. All right. Let's see what the results are here. All right, Tim, most of you, 81% of you are serving both communities. That's very good to know. We got 10% rural, 10% urban. All right, thanks. Okay, our last question. What funding scenario are you applying to? We have 3 options. The full program grants for Accelerator are Accelerator grants, kind of a planning grant we're calling connector grants, and then we have advocacy grants. So let's see, which one are you applying to? Yes, you could select more than one, I believe. No, one. Yes, we will add another. So let's see, we're almost done. Select one. Select one. Here we go, 74 there. Most are going for the program grants. Oh, we've got almost the same amount going for advocacy grants. Great, and we've got 14%. Okay, thank you for sharing that information with us. And then
Sandra, I wanted to an organization can. I wanted to add, Sandra, that while we didn't have the option in the poll for participants to select more than one option, participants are able to apply to more than one of these grant types in the high impact grant cycle.
Thank you for that, Kelvin, and we'll go over a little bit more in greater detail later in this presentation. Okay, so the fund for the San Joaquin Valley, as I mentioned, our newest grant cycle, High Impact, it was launched as a result of a partnership with the James Irvine Foundation. We were approached by our program officer in 2011 about a concept, and the concept was, what if FRF led an issue-based grant making, a competitive grant making initiative? And equal to that goal is in selecting an issue-based topic, it had to be the most pressing issue in the Central Valley. But equal to that would be FRF also leading the effort to build an endowment that would sustain the issue-based grant making. So we launched in 2012 with a committee, and it was launched with a $3 million grant over 3 years. The goal was to do the issue-based grant making, and as I mentioned, it is the issue that was selected is how we support families and children 0 to 8 for success by 3rd grade. And then the equal goal is to build a $20 million endowment that would re-grant $1 million a year to the most pressing issue, and right now we have selected the 0 to 8 focus. And it was also going to help Fresno Regional Foundation think about and develop a strategy on stimulating philanthropy in this region. So local support in the endowment building effort is a prime goal that we are trying to achieve. And we know that the goal would not be accomplished in 3 years. We know it would not be accomplished in 5 or 6 years. The goal of the fund for the San Joaquin Valley is to stimulate philanthropy in this region so that the resources and the assets in this region are used to address the most pressing challenges. So in 2012, when we launched it, excuse me, year 1, we put together an advisory committee of about 11. And the job of the advisory committee was to select the issue and then transition into grant making. So they were also our first ambassadors for the fund and high impact, and would help us think about how we would begin to build this endowment. Understanding that grant making is an asset development tool, that we knew we had to pick a topic and do the grant making in such a way that it would help us in our asset development efforts. In year 2, the advisory committee, that's in 2013, refined the language of the goals to fund. I think the first year we had 4 funding scenarios. Year 2, we went down to 1 to just focus on programming, as we were really looking to get dollars on the ground and really look at how communities and families were being impacted with this type of work. Again, it would be linked to the endowment building effort and the compelling message that we were developing to share with donors. And then they were also, that committee was tasked to oversee and provide oversight to the first year's grant making of those grantees. And that takes us to year 3. This year in 2014, again, we have refined those goals to fund to allow for the 3 funding scenarios: the program, which is the Accelerator grants, and then the connector, which is mostly planning and getting your partners together so that you can identify the shared vision and goal for the community and talk about how you would share data. And the third funding scenario around advocacy. And again, this committee, like all the committees all these years, reflect a deep local knowledge. We have added some key experts on the issue of early education. These committee members have diverse perspectives. They also represent our region, and we are very fortunate to have some partners, some committee members from outside of the region, and they do have a wide range of backgrounds. It's a little of about our advisory committee. And let's go to this year's 2014 High Impact Advisory Committee. Each of these members are listed on our website under the High Impact tab with their bios. So I encourage you to take a moment, review the committee members and their bios, because this is who will be reading the letters of interest, and if you are selected to and invited to submit a full application, these are the people who will be reading your applications. So I think this is a good approach to all our grant writers out there to consider who your audience is. You don't want to make assumptions about what they know or what they don't know. We have listed them and we have included their bios for you to review. Let's see here. Let's go on. It's talking about a little bit about why 3rd grade. We know that 1 in 6 children in our region are not reading by the end of 3rd grade on grade level, and they're not graduating on time. We know that there's a 4 times greater rate of dropout than those who are reading on 3rd grade. And if students are poor, the results do get much worse. We're not telling you anything you don't know already. The challenges of students not succeeding in school are compounded by poverty rates, the region, and our diverse communities. So after researching and discussing the connection between poverty and education at length, the committee concluded that investing early had the greatest potential for impact for this initiative, even though the results may not be evident for years. They understood that patience and long-term investments are necessary when addressing issues like generational poverty and lack of education, and are willing to make the investment up front given the compelling connection between a child's early years and their ability to graduate high school and be successful in life. All right, so we're going to go through, we have provided local data that includes the average of low-income students not reading by 3rd grade, the average of high school students not UC and CSU ready, and the average of free and reduced meals, the percentage of them, which is an indicator for poverty rates. This is the local data for all 6 counties, and the blue bar is for the year 2012 to 2013. The orange bar is the 2013-2014 year. So we can see right now in the 2 years that we have been leading this high impact grant making, we are seeing some differences, and we will continue to track these differences from year to year. You are welcome to these slides, and I think this is a great framework for looking at and tracking some key things that we're tracking in each of the areas, and we do a breakdown for each county. So as I'm talking, Kelvin's going to whiz through each of the counties. And again, the blue bar is the year 2012-2013, the orange bar, or the red if it's showing red on yours, 2013 to 2014, and we have a breakdown for each of the counties. All right, and then there's California for the same years. We think it's important that it's conveyed to our applicants, potential applicants, that we share the rigor that went into identifying this issue and also the rigor in identifying the things that we will be tracking and hoping gauging success in the near future in addressing this issue. We're going to transition to our first video on collective impact. So we talked about the what, which is how we support families families and children 0 to 8 for success by 3rd grade. I will also add that the committees have identified an approach, the how, and that how is called collective impact. So we'll start with this video on collective impact. Okay, that is a short video on collective impact. This approach has been an important component of this grant cycle. Collective impact is not new to the Central Valley, but it is a new type of framework for the foundation world. Fresno Regional Foundation values collaboration with other organizations and agencies for greater results. We believe that working together in this way will contribute to sustainable community change. Demonstrating how your organization works with other stakeholders will cause your proposal to receive a higher ranking. We are looking at shared vision and goals, shared measurements, constant communication between the partners, and building on the services and strengths of other stakeholders. The premise that the advisory committee have embraced is that no one organization can do everything. And we have, through the research and through everything, all the experiences of the committee members over the past 2 years, understanding that if your, let's say, reading program is seeing a 90% success rate, that is not enough if a partner is not capitalizing on that success. So you, within the 4 walls of your organization, are seeing great success with whatever program you're running. If whoever that population that you're serving, when they go on, whether it's a preschool going into kindergarten, whether it is a youth development program, once they're done and they go away for college, that if partners are not building on your success, that we are not reaching the transformational change that we want to see in our communities. We're looking to take how we take historically distressed communities and create communities of opportunity. And again, embracing this premise that no one organization can do everything. This integrated approach in working together has become a critical part of our high-impact grant making. Committees want to read about how your integrated work is leading to the change that you are proposing in your applications. So here's a second video that we're going to share before we go on to the next portion of this webinar.
Collective impact. Diverse organizations coming together to solve a complex social problem. Traditionally, nonprofits have operated in isolation from one another, pursuing their goals independently. But complex, large-scale problems require a coordinated, structured, and collaborative approach. Collective impact means creating alignment, commitment, policy, funding, trust, and coordinating across sectors: public, nonprofits, business, governments, foundations. Collective impact efforts typically have 5 conditions. Common agenda. This means all parties agree to shared goals and how to get there. Shared measurement. Keeping track of the same things. Mutually reinforcing activities. Each actor doing their own part, using their unique skills. Continuous communication. Regularly sharing results with each other. Backbone organization. A support team that helps mobilize, coordinate, and facilitate to keep the goal in sight and the progress rolling. Channeling our collective strength, we can solve the world's toughest problems. Collective impact.
Okay, so we believe that this type of integrated approach will be most successful if we concentrate our resources in a few specific communities. We recognize how important it is for organizations, families, and schools to work together to support one another's efforts and address gaps, and we are mindful of spreading these relatively small resources too thin. We invite proposals from individual efforts throughout the San Joaquin Valley, specifically Fresno, Tulare, Kings, Madera, Mariposa, and Merced counties. We are interested in valley-wide outreach so that we might identify bright spots in communities that are already beginning to coordinate, align, and mutually support the educational success of children living in poverty. In future funding rounds, we will likely deepen our partnership with specific communities based on this year's and past year's grants. We want to be explicit about the reach of these grants, so we are committed to our geographical footprint, but we also want our applicants to understand that we are looking for bright spots. We know that these resources are limited. Starting from ground zero may not get us to where we need to go, as opposed to finding communities where we're already seeing some synergy and momentum that we can build on and maybe use these resources to accelerate that work. So please be mindful of that. Okay, I'm going to pause to take questions and make a few comments at this point. I want to restate what I opened with, in that please understand that this is a very competitive process. It is important for you, and we encourage you to pay attention and to ask questions. I also see that we have duplicate names in our attendees. We are taking the registration names and who is logging on to confirm that your organization has participated in these webinars. If you are a consultant, this does not qualify the organization you are writing a grant for. That organization has to participate in the webinar. So if you are logged on under somebody's name, please message Michelle and give us your first and last name, your title, and the organization you're with, because we took a registration for a purpose. This is how we are able to triangulate who has attended this information session, as we have made this a requirement to apply to this grant cycle. And if we don't have your name or your organization you're representing, we will not be able to give you the invitation to apply to this grant cycle. So it's very important for us to know who is on the line and who is on this webinar, your name, your title, and the organization. And once more, if you are a consultant and the organization you are writing for is not participating in this webinar or is not participated in one of the past two, that organization will not be able to apply. All right, do we have any questions? No questions. All right. Let's go on to the next section. Oh, we have one question. Let me mute myself so that we can, no, they took the question back. Okay, and you can ask it any time. We will create the pause to get the question in. All right, here we go. Let's go into high impact. And let's go, here's contact information. We've got one more video here. And this will launch this next section of the webinar. I'm going to mute myself and get ready for this next video.
Meet Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, and Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, and Jordan, and Jamie Johnson. Two beautiful babies born on the very same day. Each baby has a good chance of landing in a good place in life, as long as one of them doesn't lose the zip code lottery. Like 1 million babies each year, Jamie's been born into a low-income family. And since Jamie's mom lacked access to good prenatal care, Jamie's much smaller than Jordan. And since they won't have access to brain-developing activities found in high-quality childcare, low-income children like Jamie will be 2 times more likely to experience developmental delays. It probably won't surprise you that by their 3rd birthday, Jamie's been exposed to a lot fewer words than Jordan. A whole lot fewer. And I imagine Jamie's 4th birthday won't be much better. By the time they reach kindergarten, Jamie will have already fallen behind Jordan in language and pre-reading skills by 12 to 14 months. And getting to school on a regular basis will be perhaps Jamie's biggest challenge. Unfortunately, a myriad of health, transportation, and housing problems will cause between 5 and 7.5 million Jamies to be chronically absent this year. But with summer right around the corner, you'd think Jamie would have plenty of time to catch up with Jordan then. Sadly, summer presents new challenges for Jamie. A mountain of challenges. You see, every summer, Jordan's learning will evolve by a month because of access to libraries, field trips, and camps, while Jamie will lose 2 months of school learning every summer because good habits such as reading haven't been reinforced. By the time they reach 3rd grade, Jamie will be between 2 and 2.5 school years behind Jordan in critical reading skills. And how much more likely is Jamie to drop out than Jordan because he can't read at a 3rd grade level? 13 times more likely, and the results of which are frankly catastrophic. Wait just 1 minute there, folks. The story doesn't end right there. Fortunately for Jamie and Jordan and all of us, there's a whole lot of folks out there that believe neither luck, nor lottery, nor zip codes should dictate Jamie's future, who also believe that our schools can't do it alone. Luckily, there are leaders, organizations, and good people out there that are dedicated to believing in a whole lot more. The solution right now is relatively straightforward, if we can commit to 4 things. Number 1, we need to make sure our kids are healthy and ready for school. Number 2, we need to ensure they grow up in a word and book-enriched environment. Number 3, we need to engage them in healthy and educational activities over the summer. Number 4, we need to make sure that Jamie attends school every single day, because at the end of the day, you and I both know that lotteries, zip codes, and plain old dumb luck don't really author our children's future. We do.
Okay, these videos, all 3 videos, will be made available on the High Impact grant making page, and this PowerPoint slide will also be made available on the High Impact grant making page. We are also going to put up a recording of the webinar. I think we may use the last webinar we did for this, since it's available already. So all of this information will be on the High Impact page of our grant making tabs. All right, let's get into the actual grant making now. So let's begin with what this grant making is not for. It is not for capital projects, not building a playground. It is not for non-integrated programs. This means a standalone reading program or a standalone health program. This is not for materials only. This is not for buying books in a library or just materials for a summer reading program. This is not what these dollars are intended for. So we have 3 funding scenarios for this year's grant making. We call them Accelerator grants, Connector grants, and Advocacy grants. This is a little, just a slight change from year 1's grant making where we had 4 funding scenarios, and we essentially collapsed the Accelerator and Alignment grants from 2012 into the Accelerator grant and then brought back the other 2 funding scenarios for this year. Can your organization apply for more than one of these funding scenarios? And the answer is yes. So let's say you decide to apply to all 3. You've got something that's already in place with a community group and you're ready to go for a 2-year program grant. You want to start and maybe scale your work in a new community, and you want to start with a connector grant to start pulling your partners together. And you also have identified an advocacy piece, something very specific that's tied to student success in this 0 to 8 pipeline. If you decide to apply to all 3, we need a letter of interest from all 3 in all 3 of these categories. And if you are so fortunate to be invited to all 3, your LOI leads you to an invitation, and we want something in all 3 of these areas, then you will need to apply to all 3 of them with separate applications. So that's going to be 3 applications. So there is not a combination. You cannot combine any one of these into one letter of interest or one application. If they are all considered separately, we want to read about their plans and the details separately. So yes, you could apply for more than one. It is more work for you because we want more information. All right, these are for organizations that are effectively collaborating with others and addressing gaps and aligning services in the educational pipeline. The grant ranges are $100,000 to $250,000 over 2 years. So if you apply for $100,000, it's going to be $50,000 a year. If you apply for $180,000, it'll be $90,000 a year. This is essentially, you've got all the elements that we are looking for in this. These dollars are essentially going to accelerate your work. It's rocket fuel for you. Accelerator grants, we are looking for programs that, or we're looking to fund programs or strengthen a program by deepening the services provided or adding new components of the work. These dollars could also be used to work with another organization to strategically align services in a way that builds on each program's efforts. You could use these dollars to adjust an existing program designed to align services with another part of the educational pipeline, and use a portion of it to pilot test some of it, not all of it. Again, these grants are, we essentially want you to use them as, rocket fuel. They are really, you've got something in place already, and you could fine-tune aspects of it. We encourage you to go onto the web page and read the eligibility criteria. This is important for you to understand, because once we get to the application phase, we will essentially go through the eligibility criteria and check yes or no. And the eligibility criteria that's listed all are non-negotiables. They have to be present in your application. While we know that there's a letter of interest first, we certainly want you to be mindful of the end goal. If your program is not going to align with the eligibility criteria, you should seriously reconsider applying for that particular funding scenario, because that is going to be the threshold. The eligibility criteria for that funding scenario is the threshold of whether you will be funded or not. All right, let's go on here to connector grants. This connector grants are for organizations that want to coordinate, connect, and share information between different partners in the educational pipeline. So we know we have a very high threshold for the Accelerator grants. If you are not quite there, we have allowed the space to fund in the space of bringing your partners together and discussing how you will align around a shared vision and goal for your community, how you will demonstrate progress and identify the things that you will measure, how you will identify partners that are necessary to this effort, this long-term effort. And these grants are one-year grants. They range from $50,000 to $75,000, essentially for the organization to convene their partners for a year and begin the planning process that would lead to a 2-year grant. This funding could be used to help multiple stakeholders define success in a clear, concrete way, help stakeholders identify their organization's contributions to the overall goal and identify gaps in services, help others collaborate to close the gaps or tap emerging opportunities, work with multiple stakeholders to create shared vision and goals and communicate the vision and goals to the community at large and potential donors. We're looking to help you bring your partners together to think through together how you will take historically distressed communities and create communities of opportunity. Okay, the third funding scenario, advocacy grants. And these are for organizations to identify and accomplish a specific policy or procedural change. These could be 1 or 2 years. You tell us what time you need, but the grant range is $25,000 to $75,000. And these are to address policies that challenge, limit, slow down the work towards this overall goal and how we support families and children 0 to 8 for success by 3rd grade. All right, funding could be used to advocate for changes, to remove system barriers, and improve outcomes for children in the years leading up to and in the 3rd grade. It will also support policies and long-term systems change that does not require continual grant support in at least one of the following areas. Supporting English language learners, increasing parental access to schools and parent engagement, addressing health policies, early education integration with community centers, leveraging local control funding formula resources in the community. I think the key area in all of these, and if you go to the website you will see additional eligibility and selection criteria, read them, because ultimately if you are invited to an application, that will be the threshold that we will be measuring these applications against to see if they meet. In this advocacy space, we are really looking for tangible, focused work that's tied to student success and or tied to the parents and the children 0 to 8 for student success by 3rd grade. So for example, English language learners we given here as an area to work in, either addressing the frequency of the testing that redesignates English language learners, more and better support for the programs to convert, to make our English language learners proficient in English, helping parents, especially those undocumented, get access and connect to the school districts in better ways. We know, for example, a barrier to that is you volunteer at a school, a license ID is required to start the paperwork for volunteers. There's a way to add a different pathway for undocumented parents to maybe verify their ID identification and for all the safety reasons, but it's a pathway that will lead to their engagement to the school. Those are the types of policy things. Again, you are doing this work on the ground. You may have identified other key things that are prohibiting or causing the gaps between community and us supporting schools and the overall effort of supporting children 0 to 8 for student success. All right, I'm going to pause and take questions.
We have a couple of questions. The first one being, can an advocacy grant be used to work with stakeholders, for example, parents, to develop an advocacy agenda?
I would say take a look at the eligibility criteria, and you want whatever your program is, we have given some guidance as to what types of outcomes, tangible outcomes, that we are looking for with the advocacy grants. And if that agenda, if it aligns with those eligibility and selection criteria, then I say yes. So whatever agenda you're thinking about creating with parents, it has to meet the eligibility and selection criteria of what is listed in the advocacy grants and the overall goal of it.
Please let us know if you have further questions after we've had a stab at attempt at answering your question. The next question, Sandra, is it acceptable to make an appointment to discuss a potential LOI with a program officer to be certain of our project matches the foundation's interest?
Yes. Yes, we are open to that. The closer we get to deadlines, we will not be available because LOIs and getting ready for that deadline. So I would say the sooner, the better. Yes, I believe in our last webinar we said August 12th is kind of our drop dead date for us for doing one-on-one. We will also, if you have a draft that you want us to review well before the deadline, we are happy to provide feedback. The program staff does not vote on the advisory committee, but we can certainly offer you feedback on your LOI and even when we get to the application phase. But again, we cannot do it as we get closer to deadline dates.
One more question. If you have a partner but want to add others to extend the program, can you apply for the Accelerator and Connector grants?
As I mentioned, you could apply to more than one funding scenario. It is up to the applicant to make the compelling case and demonstrate how it aligns and meets the eligibility criteria of each of them. But yes, applicants can apply to 1, 2, or all 3 of the funding scenarios.
But do remember that for each application that you submit, you will need to submit a separate LOI process. And if you are invited for more than one LOI for a full application, you will need to submit a full application for each grant proposal that gets invited.
I will also add that your Connector grant needs to stand alone. It is not going to be tied to an Accelerator grant. So it needs to stand on its own merits, and you need to convey and relay what the intent is and how it aligns with the goals of that funding priority. Okay, so we don't have any questions. I'm going to go to probably the most important part for the foundation anyway, reporting requirements. We'll be spending a bit of time on reporting requirements. This is an important piece for the foundation, as the grant reports help us measure our impact in the community. So when we began our grant making program in 2008, we began our competitive grant making by developing the final report first. We wanted to know, well, what is it that we want to accomplish in competitive grant making? So the final report was the first step of this competitive grant making program. And we worked backwards to get to the questions that you see in the application. There are changes to the data collection in this year's. Much of the changes are attributed to our high impact grant making work. We have added some requirements that include information about the parents that you're working with, or the parents of the children that you're working with. If you are funded, you will be required to report on this information. So take a look at the requirements. Part of the handouts that we're making available on the website is a PDF of the final report, so you can see all of the information that we are requiring for all funded grants. Think about what your organization is already collecting and what data you do not collect that we will ask for in the final report. Think about how you will be able to collect this data if you are not doing it right now. So we have created this section because we really want to convey to you this is a critical piece of our competitive grant making. Review the final report form and the requirements. Organizations must be prepared to comply with what we're requesting, and failure to submit the final report may disqualify the grantee from future funding requests.
Following this webinar, we will send you a copy of the final report in PDF to your email, along with other materials for this presentation. So please review that final report carefully.
Okay, so the first step, we went over this right now. Yes, the first step in this high impact grant making is a letter of interest. We are now at the end of our webinar. Everybody will be getting this letter of interest template. So please be on the lookout. We will also, since this is our third and final webinar for high impact, we'll be posting the template on the website also. Follow the instructions. These questions are meant to tease out the important aspects of the work. I am sorry. So let's start. I think we got messages. I was still muted. With the letter of interest, this is the first step to this application. We will send this out to everybody as soon as this webinar is over. It will also be posted on the website. Follow the instructions. These questions are meant to tease out the important aspects to the committee. Review those committee members and their bios so you know your audience. The program staff will provide one-on-one support to those organizations that are invited to submit full applications. So we will not go over the organization profile form or submitting the application online. We will do that one-on-one once we get past the letter of interest phase. All right, any questions? We don't have any questions. I cannot believe it. We have no questions. So let me leave you with 2 comments. Review the final report requirements and follow the instructions on the letter of interest. We do not, the program staff does not modify anything that is submitted. So let me tell you how the last few cycles of letter of interest have gone. We have consistent formats for about 20, and the 1 or 2 that don't follow the format stand out. So you do not want to stand out in a negative way for not following directions. So again, it's a lot of reading for our committee, and when they do it, when they sit down and do it, they read 7, 10 LOIs, and then boom, somebody is standing out because they are not following the format. You do not want to be singled out because you did not follow the format. So please follow the format.
I want to add to what Sandra just said, and that is that when the format does not meet the template that we've provided, the committee has to spend more time orienting themselves as to the important components that they are trying to identify in each of the LOIs. And so you don't want the committee to be frustrated trying to understand what you're trying to communicate. Again, the questions in the template are meant to help tease out the important aspects that will get the committee's attention.
All right, any questions? Do we have any questions, Michelle, Kelvin? All right, we are on time. Oh, wait.
Someone is asking about the length of.
Okay, all the instructions about the lengths, it should not exceed 3 pages. If you exceed 3 pages, we are only forwarding 3 pages. We will not forward the entire document then. We cut it off at the 3-page mark.
And we will be sending the 3 separate Word templates to each of you, and we will post them on the grant making page under the High Impact tab, so you can download them then.
A reminder, we have 3 letter of interest templates because we have 3 funding scenarios. So there is a letter of interest template for each Accelerator, Connector, and Advocacy grants. And we have a question.
The question is, how soon after the LOI is submitted will we find out if you are selected? We will notify everyone after September 3rd whether you've been invited for a full application or not.
I believe these dates are posted on the High Impact grant making page. All important dates are posted on each of the grant making page, and in this case, if you go to the High Impact tab, you will see all important dates listed on the right side of the page. Any additional questions? All right, well, thank you for your time. We wish you well. If you have questions, please contact us. If you want us to provide any feedback or review anything, please contact us. The sooner, the better. Our date for access to the program staff for this grant cycle is August 12th. We have a quick turnaround, so we hope you can get to us as soon as you possibly can. All right, thank you and have a good afternoon.